Hi Ben, this is Connie Davidson and I'm making this little video tutorial for you to kind of coach you through lesson planning. You're getting better, but there's still some issues that we need to consider as we develop lesson planning skills. So I'm going to start at the top and work my way down to the bottom. So we have here your lesson plan. It does tell me it's in language arts. It tells me what the goals are, so that's fine. I can tell that you're going to be doing phonemic awareness with particular sounds and that the students will be defining those words using dictionaries. I know that, and I understand that they will decode vocabulary words by locating the PH sound in the word and demonstrating what sound it makes. Now, decoding a word and identifying PH and telling me what sound it makes are two different things. Decoding of vocabulary words means that I'm going to be able to string all those phonemes together and tell you what the word is and say the whole word. Locating the PH in a word really just means that they have to identify that grouping of those two letters and then know that those two letters make a particular sound. So you need to be very careful about what you're writing here, because I'm going to be looking at decoding skills and I'm going to be looking at PH identification if that's what you state your lesson's going to be about. You also say they're going to be using a dictionary to assist in the decoding. I'm not really sure that that's what you mean unless you were going to have the students look at the way the dictionary has sounded out the word and then have them say each one of those sounds and blend it together so that they'll say the whole word. So that's the first thing you have to consider when you're doing your lesson, because this is where you can want apples but teach oranges. So that needs to be tightened up just a bit. So now we're looking at the standards. You have given me both the content standard, which is important, and the content standards tells you what the student is to know and be able to do. And then your ELD standards tell you, in this particular case, regarding reading, what the student should be able to do as an ELD learner. So in this particular case, you have an early intermediate ELD student. They're going to be able to understand concepts in print, phonemic awareness, and vocabulary and concept development. That's fine. That's absolutely right on target. But what you're missing here is also, it's reading, writing, listening, and speaking. You are missing the listening and speaking portion of the ELD development standard. Whenever you are teaching for language development, students have to use that language. So because in this particular lesson you're going to have them seated in a small group and they are going to be speaking, then you need to have the speaking standard down here as well. In addition to this standard telling you what a student is supposed to be able to do, it also tells you what you need to do, and I'll show you later on when it asks about the adaptations, is how you need to frame this lesson and adapt it from what's in general to how you are going to make it specific to English language development. So it says, while reading aloud, recognizes and produces English phonemes that do not correspond to phonemes students already hear and produce. So what is it, how are you going to ensure that your English language learners are going to do this? So in this particular case, are they going to read aloud? Are they going to read a story? Is it going to be in the context of a sentence? They have to stop, point to the PH, then say the sound, tell it to the friend next to them, repeat the sound. What is it you're going to do to help support the development of an early intermediate ELD student? Your grade level is fine, and now we get to the content objective. This is what the students will be able to do and states the outcome of the lesson. So, given these vocabulary words, The students will demonstrate their understanding of the PH sound in a word by reading and writing. You see, you already have writing here, but you don't have writing up here as part of the ELD portion of what they're going to do. But they're going to read and they're going to write the vocabulary list, as well as looking up the selected words in the dictionary for participation in a small group activity with other ELLs. Now, I understand what you wrote, but I want you to see back up here, you say that they're going to read these words aloud. They're going to look up in the dictionary for meaning of the vocabulary words and for the spelling of these words. And that here, where was the decoding piece? They are going to use the dictionary, I think, to help them decode. They're going to decode longer words. So I'm going to be looking for decoding somewhere down here. Oh, here it is. Students will decode vocabulary words by locating the words and then saying them. And they will use a dictionary in order to assist with this decoding. Down here, it doesn't say anything about decoding. So if they're going to decode, you have to put that down here. So they're going to demonstrate understanding of the PH in the words that they're going to read. I don't know what the words are, so you need given a list of words. This is unclear. I'm not exactly sure how you are going to measure that they did this. An objective has to be measurable. So how many words do they have to get right in order to demonstrate mastery? Or how many do they have to speak or read or decode or identify in order to demonstrate mastery? Now, when it says language objective, they are talking about English language development objective. You have to write this objective out. Students will read, write, listen, and understand and speak spelling and vocabulary words with the PH sound. That does not work. For an ELD student, what is it that you expect to see? Given these words, the student will first point to the PH sound, then the student will blend the word, and then the student will say the word. Now, I just want you to think about this. If you're an ELD student and you are learning English and you are given a dictionary and you're going to look up a word and then you're going to have that dictionary help you define the word, what's missing in that? Where's the disconnect? You're learning English and most dictionaries are gobbledygook, even for people who understand English. So what is the classroom thing you're going to do to help bridge dictionaries with the word for meaning and spelling? And that's not here, and that needs to be here. So now you have learning about students. This is fine when you're moving further in the program. You're going to want to have a little bit more detail about the class, but I understand why this is, but it's okay as is. And you said your consideration is for EL learners. That's fine because you have an entire group of EL. Anticipated difficulties. Okay, so in this lesson, you're going to direct it in a small group. Well, that's not an anticipated difficulty. They will likely struggle with elements of PH. Like what? What is it they're going to likely struggle with? What about PH words? I don't understand what that means. It's vague. It needs to be more specific. They will likely struggle with the PH sound because it is also the F sound, and they have learned the F sound, and now they have to overlay this new understanding that when you see PH together, that's also the F sound, but then there's also the EFF sound, so I expect there to be some confusion. Now you are telling me what the problem is that you anticipate. This is this vague. You can't say that. I think the lesson will be very fruitful in determining what their existing knowledge is to date at the school year. That doesn't answer the question. Here it says, what do you anticipate as a difficulty? You have to remember to answer the question that's asked or the prompt that's asked. Adaptations. Okay, so these are your SADAI adaptations. You're going to increase wait time. You're going to put them in group. You're going to do CDI. Okay, and you're going to have an oral assessment. So now I know how you're going to assess these students. So now I go back here and I look and see what you wrote as, excuse me for scrolling like that. Students will demonstrate their understanding of the PH word by reading and writing and the selected words. It doesn't say anything up here about them speaking. You down here say you are going to assess them orally. It does not align. You have to align your instruction. Adaptations. They're going to be in a small group. Okay, that's fine. Because English is not their native language, increased wait time will be needed. Okay. Additionally, I proceed through the lesson. I will use CDI. All right, so now I'm going to think, what is the CDI? For example, I will make sure that error corrections are done in the context through modeling. I'm not exactly sure what that means. I don't know exactly what that means. You're going to say the word and then you're going to repeat the word. I don't know what that means. Additionally, I will work to ensure that the work is engaging. That's not a CDI strategy. That's just what you would do if you were teaching. That's not an adaptation. I will also use a slower speech rate when necessary. That's a CDI strategy. Clear enunciation, that's fine. Have control over the vocabulary so it does not expand beyond their abilities. I don't know what that means. So, and I don't know how that's a CDI strategy. One of the things you're always wanting to do is move a student into the zone of proximal development. So you want to make sure that you move the children into more challenging environments without frustrating them. I will be looking to assess their oral skills. There you go again with that oral thing, but you never said you were going to do anything orally with the PH sound. Okay, that's what you would do normally. That's not an adaptation. That's what you said you were going to do. So that, I don't understand how you were going to do that. It doesn't tell me the how. It just tells me the what. 21st century skills, they're going to be communicating. Okay. You were going to assess formally, informally, and formatively. All right. Okay. Description of the assessment. Identify students' prior knowledge of vocabulary words using PH. I don't understand. Based on what you said they were going to do, I don't get that. I'm coming back up here to the objective, and there you have these reading and writing vocabulary list of words. They're looking up the selected words in the dictionary for participation in a small group activity with other ELs. That does not align with this. It does. It's what you said. This doesn't have anything to do with what you said was going to be the outcome. Informally evaluate students' ability, I'm assuming, to pronounce. Informally evaluation students' ability, pronounce, identify the EF sound in a pre-selected vocabulary list, as well as their ability to pronounce said word. That just needs good English because I don't know what you're talking about. Assess students' ability to use dictionaries. Okay. So the students are going to be assessed on their ability to use a dictionary to help them spell out a word, and you are going to assess if they have appropriate phonemic awareness to begin to locate where the words are. You didn't say you were going to be teaching that up front, so I don't understand why you're going to be using this as an assessment tool. You didn't say that the students would be able to use appropriate phonemic awareness of the word so they would understand how to use the dictionary. That I don't even know, or whatever they're going to use. You'll have students spell words with PH followed by reading them aloud to demonstrate mastery, phonemic awareness of PH vocabulary words. Okay, if students will spell the words with a PH followed by reading them aloud to demonstrate mastery of awareness. Awareness means they know it's going to be there. So, when you're writing out your assessment up here, you are going to, the students will be able to spell the word accurately, demonstrate that they know how to look up words in the dictionary, identify words that have a PH sound, be able to pronounce the PH sound in the word and the word in the word accurately, and use a dictionary to help spell the word. I still don't get that part, but if that's what you're going to do, that's what you're going to do. Okay, let's move back down here. So now you've got the model of instruction is going to be direct instruction. Okay. So that means you're going to do most of the talking. You're going to tell them what to do. You're going to check for understanding that they know what to do. And then that's all that direct instruction is. You don't have them doing, are they going to then do by themselves? Or are they going to be able to collaborate with one another and talk about it or do any pair share? Then what you're going to need is a composition book, dictionary, pencils, vocabulary list. It would really be helpful if you wrote down what the vocabulary words were so that I get an idea of what the words are. That's part of what you have. So you can either put that up here in your objective, given the vocabulary list of XYZ words, of these vocabulary words, students will be able to. So because I'm at a loss of understanding what the vocabulary words are. So now we're into the narration. Now whenever you're opening a lesson, you have to hook the kids in order for them to get ready to learn. You don't just jump into a lesson. You're either going to check for understanding, or you're going to give them an experience that's going to help them hook into it, or you're going to ask them to do something that connects them with prior knowledge. Or in this case, you're doing EL students. You might even show them your cell phone or a picture of a phone and say, what is this? It's a phone. How do you think you spell this word? And then kids would tell you how they think they spell this word. Then you talk about, well, today we're going to learn about words that sound like they're spelled with this, but actually use these two letters to make this same sound. So now you've got me ready to learn. So you bring the kids to the carpet, you've done these things, you pass out the pencils, the paper, and the dictionary so that they'll be ready to use. So the reason you are here is to review and better learn the PH sound in words. There's no reason for a child to be interested in listening to this. Yeah, that's what you're going to do, but I'm a kid. What are you doing to prepare me for this? So then the first thing you do is you say, does anybody know what the PH sound is? Well, you're teaching me the PH sound. You can ask that question, but remember, these are English language learners that you're working with. And some may not even have that sound in their native language. So you need to do something a little more interesting to get the students ready as the open for this lesson. You say, since we're in a small group, they're welcome to call out their answers. That's fine. But you also need to say something like, I'm hoping that the students will say, or I will be able to tell from their response how familiar they are with this sound and how much work I need to do. I am checking for prior knowledge here. Then you say, very good. What I'm going to do to start is read you some vocabulary words. Okay, that's all right, but what are the vocabulary words? And you are going to repeat them after me. And then you are going to identify EFF sound as well as define the word. Okay, so that's what they're going to do. There has to be somewhere in here a check for understanding where you then say, I will then ask the students, I will call on them randomly, or I will call on them or ask them to speak with their neighbor and ask them to review what the steps are. You have to check for understanding. Again, you're telling me what you're going to do. You are not showing me yourself doing it. Teachers, okay, you can tell me, can you tell me what each word means? Now, your lesson is about understanding the PH in words by reading and writing the word and looking the word up in this group activity. There's nothing in here that talks about the meaning of the word. If you are attempting to teach vocabulary to students, and these students do not speak English as a first language, you're going to have to do a whole lot more than just ask them, do you know what this word means, by showing them a word. There's got to be something visual here. You've got to do more. This just isn't going to work. So then you go through the definitions. The teacher goes through the list again, and students give personal definitions. Well, what if they don't know what the word is? What if I'm sitting there and I'm an EL student and I speak Mandarin, and everybody around me speaks Spanish, so they've seen this word, but I speak Mandarin. How are you going to reach me? How are you going to help me understand what this word is? You're telling me what it is isn't going to help frame that in my head what this is. So you really need to go back and look at the Sedai approach, because this is not the Sedai approach. This is more telling the kids. This is not the kids doing. This is you telling. People don't learn if you tell. People learn when you give them an opportunity to do. So then you don't say what you expect them to, because they're going to give you personal definitions, okay. And then you say, good job. Now, you say, we're going to look them up in the dictionary to match the official ones. So you expect me, the kid who speaks Mandarin, to understand what this dictionary is saying, and then kids gave their personal definitions, but what if those definitions were wrong? How are you going to scaffold me so I'm able to understand what these vocabulary words mean? And I say once again, you didn't ask me what they meant. Your objective was that they would be reading the words and writing the vocabulary words, and they would understand the PH sound, but you didn't say anything about me understanding vocabulary. You just said I would be able to identify PH in a word and be able to know that that sound is f. A quick review of how to use a dictionary. Okay, so they know how to do that. If I were to locate the word pie, I would find, why don't you have them tell you how to use the dictionary? Again, you're telling the kids. You're not letting them show you what they know. You're not tapping into their understanding or their knowledge. You are telling. So if a word starts with pie, I will look up. Why don't you say, tell me how you would find the word pie? When you demonstrate, that's passive learning. You want your students to be active learners. And this is something I've seen when I observe you. You do most of the talking. You tell, you explain, you give. You do not allow the students the opportunity to think for themselves, to make their own connections, to be able to demonstrate for you what they already know or what you are teaching them. So now you say students should look up the words after the teacher orally gives each one once. I'm learning English. You are now going to require me to listen to a word auditorily, just listen, and for me to make sense of those sounds and then look them up in a dictionary. I'm learning to speak English. I speak Mandarin. I don't really even understand the phonemic awareness of the American alphabet. You're not giving me anything to help me like a visual. Why don't you show me a picture of a pie? Show me a picture of a phone. Then put the word next to it so I have two visuals to help me understand vocabulary, help me understand the spelling, and then I can look it up. You assume I know how to spell this word just by listening. And a lot of your kids are not auditory learners. And I can guarantee you somebody learning a language is really going to have a hard time being successful doing this. So then it says you will allow wait time for the students to complete this activity as a group. All right, so now you have them working as a group. And if they're working as a group, then this is not just direct instruction. But I can see why you say that, because you tell the students what to do so much. If they're going to be working as a group and collaborating and talking to one another, then you need to add more here. It's not just direct instruction. Okay, as students have looked up and found the definitions of each word, again, you're assuming I can read the dictionary. You say, good job. I don't get that. How are you going to, I don't understand what you're going to do with this. it doesn't tell me anything. It tells me what, but it doesn't tell me how. How is this strategic? How does this help support their learning? And then you say good job. Good job because they looked up and found the definition of each word. Does that mean they know what the word means because they found a definition? I can look up a word in a dictionary and point to where the definition is, but that doesn't mean I know the definition of the word. Now that we have gone over each word in several different ways, I don't know how you did that because you didn't describe it. I don't know how you went over the words in several different ways. I don't know how the kids made any of the connections to what they did personally to what's happening with this word. I don't know how they identified the pH and they did all that other stuff because you don't tell me. Now you're going to close your dictionaries and open your composition books as we are going to have a spelling pre-test of the vocabulary words. So is this a spelling activity? Is this a vocabulary activity? Is this a reading activity? I don't know. I don't know what you're trying to teach. I don't know how this all connects together. So then you close. I will read aloud. I will read aloud each word again, and it is your job to write them each down. So you assume from this activity that I know how to spell these words. That's a huge assumption. I don't know how you got to here, but if this is the assessment, then what you're assessing is, this is what's measurable. The students will be able to accurately spell the vocabulary words with 80% to demonstrate mastery, or 80% and above. This is your deliverable here. And if this is your deliverable, you have been teaching this lesson in a way that will not help you reach this spelling deliverable. You will list the words verbally again. I'm not sure how you will list them, or you will say the words verbally again, but this time students have to write the words in their composition notebook. What you taught and what you're measuring are two different things. Okay, then you review the student's spelling. Okay. Good job. Please repeat each word on the list again with me. So you're going to do a column response, I'm assuming. Now I want you to circle the sounds. Now we're getting down to your PH sound, the F sound in each word. Okay, this part I see. This part I see. But for this lesson, I could have just given them the list of the words and they could circle the PH and say F. But that doesn't mean they know how to say the words, and that doesn't mean they know anything about the word. It just means they can point to PH and say the sound. Review each student's spelling and circling of the EF sound. Now, if this is them seeing the word and they have to find it, great. If this is based on their spelling of the word and they have to find it, if they didn't put a PH in there, then they're not going to find this. They're not going to find a circle. They're not going to do that. So I'm not exactly sure how this holds together. Make note of the number of errors and mastery by students to determine how much more they will need. You never stated what mastery was going to look like, so I don't know. How do you know? What's mastery going to be? Because it's never been stated. I know this is a lot, but this is very important. You've got to be able to formulate your lesson plans in such a way what you are teaching is what your students are learning. Right now, what you taught and what your students learned and what they were expected to do did not align. You're going to need to redo this again. I'm going to send this to you. I hope it's helpful. Listen to it. Follow along. If you then need anything, let me know, and I'll be more than happy to work with you further. Thank you.